Unfortunately, my family has quite been affected by kidney disease because my brother had polycystic kidney disease. He died 5 years ago, but he was on peritoneal dialysis for 5 years prior to him dying. Then my husband as a complication of diabetes, he got kidney failure and started to go on dialysis about 6 years ago. It had gone progressively worse as his diabetes got worse. And so we started peritoneal dialysis. He had a catheter inserted and we started peritoneal dialysis. But unfortunately he got a really bad infection in his catheter tube, which meant it had to come out, and it was then not possible for him to have go back onto peritoneal dialysis. So we went into hemodialysis and we were in centre for about 6 months. We found that very hard. We pushed quite hard to get on the home dialysis programme. We started training very quickly thereafter, and it changed our lives. It was really brilliant. We trained on the next stage machine. My husband and I both trained together. He had some peripheral nerve damage in his fingers, which meant that he was unable to needle himself properly. So I learnt all the basics for the machine, and we set to. It took us a few weeks to learn, and there were 1 or 2 bumps along the road, but actually we realised what a change to our life it would be. It meant that you could choose your time for dialysis, so if we wanted to go out on a day, we'd just get up very early, do the dialysis, and then we were free. Impossible if you're in centre. So there were huge benefits. We took the machine away to Switzerland and to France, and indeed up to Yorkshire. All went really smoothly. The bags were arranged by the NHS to go even to Switzerland. That was a bit interesting because they had to go via Poland, but they were all there. We had brilliant holidays, and we just fitted dialysis in with it. So for me, home dialysis is so much the answer if you can. I understand that there's all sorts of drawbacks, particularly if you've got a small home and not anywhere to store the stuff. And those things need looking at. And yes, you have to be prepared to take responsibility for your own treatment. But it's so liberating. It's absolutely brilliant. It certainly brought us closer together as a couple because we were doing things together. I was caring for him. He was involved in it. We discussed it. And during his dialysis, we'd very often sit together and chat, or we'd just get on with our various things. He'd watch a film, I'd do some sewing. So it really, it was a good time, although it's odd to say. I would advise anybody who could do it. He had a fistula, but others use lines, and both of which I believe are successful. I was really nervous about needling him. Actually, it turned out to be the least troublesome. Once the fistula was in place and we had the buttonhole in place, we virtually never had trouble getting the needles in. There were 1 or 2 issues, when I made the odd mistake with setting up the machine. But the support we got was tremendous, both from the hospital. They never got cross with us, however stupid we were, and treated it with a great deal of humour and respect. And equally, I had to occasionally to ring up at 3 o'clock one morning because there was an alarm going on the dialysis fluid making machine. Again, rang up, immediately dealt with the most good humour. So I always felt confident there was somebody there to protect us, to make sure we were right, and everybody supported us and were kind and helpful. And for me, it was a time of actually some joy, which is a strange thing to say, because we were working together, we made it work, and it was a liberating experience for us. Speak to somebody about your concerns, because usually, granted there aren't always the ways in which they can be sorted, but so often they can't, because it's so easy to allow the barriers to get in the way of what would be a sort of liberation. Yes, you need space to store the consumables. Yes, you need to have confidence in your own ability, but there is great support out there. And if you can find the space, and I know it must be difficult with people who have got children or animals, but if you work with your team to see if you can work through the barriers, there may well be an answer, because it really is worth doing, because it does give you life, a life back that is really worth living.